dust of Dora settled heavy in the air, matching the iron-fisted rule gripping Nigeria. It was the mid-1980s, and General Muhammadu Buhari's military regime governed with an unyielding hand. In this era of strict discipline and war against indiscipline, a boy named Kubi was born. His father was a soldier, and a man whose boots were polished to a mirror shine, and whose voice carried the absolute authority of the state. Kubi grew up understanding the harsh realities of military rule. Order was enforced, dissent was crushed, and fear was a daily companion. But the discipline of his father's uniform could not hold his home together. The marriage fractured, and in the bitter fallout, Kubi's mother departed. He was stripped of her warmth, destined not to see her face again for 35 long years. Chaos truly found Kubi in 1991. The civil war in Liberia was raging, and his father's name was drafted into the ECOMOG peacekeeping force. Knowing the dark probability of the jungle warfare awaiting him, the soldier made a desperate choice. He packed Kubi and his elder brother's meager belongings and took them to a remote village to live with their grandmother. She was a frail, elderly woman, her hands trembling with age, barely capable of looking after herself, let alone 2 growing boys. The safety net vanished completely. Left to fend for themselves in a harsh environment, Kubi was exposed to the raw, predatory underbelly of the streets. Vices of all kinds swirled around him: theft, drugs, and violence. By the age of 8, hunger became an active enemy. Kubi took to the streets, stretching out his small palms to beg for food and scraps of money just to survive. For nearly 3 years, his life was a repetitive cycle of rejection and survival. Then, at the age of 10, the fragile thread connecting him to his past snapped. News arrived from the front lines. His father had been redeployed to Sierra Leone and was shot dead in the line of duty. With no father and an incapacitated grandmother, Kubi's reality darkened. The streets became his permanent home. The turning point arrived on a scorching afternoon in 1996. Kubi, now 11, approached a university student on the street, softly asking for change. The student, irritated and rushed, sneered down at the ragged boy. "Get out of here, you useless nuisance!" the student yelled. Something snapped inside Kubi, the military discipline of his early childhood, and a dormant spark of dignity flared up. He looked the student dead in the eye and spoke in clear, deliberate English. "I am not a nuisance. I know exactly what a nuisance means, and that is not me." The student stopped dead in his tracks. He stared at Kubi, utterly astonished. In a society where street children were dismissed as uneducated and invisible, here was a ragged, shoeless boy speaking impeccable English with unwavering confidence. Recognizing a rare spark, the student's anger melted into profound empathy. He grabbed Kubi, hailed a commercial motorcycle, and drove him straight to a local youth community development center. "Listen to me," the student told the boy. "You cannot stay on these streets. They will corrupt you. A boy who speaks as well as you do has a bright future." He pointed to the youth center. "If you must look for help, look for it in there." Before leaving, the student and his friends pooled their money together and handed Kubi 35 naira. In 1996, to an 11-year-old beggar, it felt like an absolute fortune, the largest sum he had ever held. Stepping through the doors of the youth center, Kubi walked out of his old life forever. The mentors at the center didn't just give him food, they fed his mind. They taught him about self-esteem, personal responsibility, and purpose. He learned a truth that rewired his brain. Irrespective of your past situation, you can rewrite your destiny through your current actions. Kubi threw himself into the center's programs. He mastered public speaking, discovered a passion for acting, and began leading community projects. The boy who once begged for survival was now organizing youth advocacy campaigns. His voice, once used to plead for coins, became a powerful tool for inspiration. 5 years later, the ultimate validation arrived. In 2001, Kubi's relentless advocacy and brilliant leadership caught international attention. He was officially appointed as the United Nations Ambassador for African Children. The extraordinary appointment took the boy from the dusty streets of northern Nigeria to the grand halls of global diplomacy. He traveled to America, standing tall in a tailored suit to meet with the former President of the United States. As he shook hands with the world leader, Kubi thought back to the 35 naira, the insults on the street, and the absolute silence of his childhood. He had started with nothing, surrounded by adversity, but he kept believing. Today, he had achieved a life far beyond his wildest imagination.